Welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video. So today it's a CGC 9.8 comic book market update video. Yeah, I got a full list here of some 9.8 key issues and the prices that they sold for. Because, I think one of the best things you can do if you're actively buying CGC 9.8 comic books is just to know the fair market value for the 9.8 that you might want. And way less of a chance you'll ever overpay when you just have more information about the pricing, the fair pricing for the 9.8 that you might want. And that's what these videos are all about here. So a full list to get through here. They're all CGC 9.8s, all the books we'll talk about. All the pricing is all US dollars, just to keep it simple. And I got a list in the description below with the pricing if you wanted a quick resource there. Okay, let's get right into the list here. First one, I brought out mine here. I got two of them in the 9.8, a Batman 423. Classic Todd McFarlane cover. There's just over 100 of them in the blue label. So a great Batman McFarlane collector item. I've certainly recommended this one in the past. One sold for $770, and another one sold for $868.86. So interesting with this one because about a month ago there were two auctions pretty, within a couple days of each other. One sold for like 900 and something, and the next one it was like 1,050, or maybe it was even over. And I'm pretty sure those were records for Batman 423 CGC 9.8. And even, loving this book so much, even then I was like, you probably don't want to get in here and buy one around $1,000. Be patient here, and maybe one will come up for, 800, maybe even under 800. In an auction, $770 about a month later, one selling for. Just in the last day or two here, $868.86 in an auction. So, yeah, I think, those are solid prices. I didn't really expect it to just sail over $1,000. This isn't like a huge key or anything like that. Just a really rare one that if you're a huge McFarlane fan and a Batman fan, this is like definitely the one to get. And pretty rare in the 9.8. So, like $770, I think is actually a good buy given where the 9.8 market has come, and a lot of these, 9.8's getting pretty expensive. So I think around $770, maybe even $750, if you can swing that for Batman 423 in the 9.8 is a book I would recommend actually right now. Okay, next one here, a lot of prices. Really cool to see all this. In Ultimate Fallout number 4, in the first print in the CGC 9.8, a lot of supply coming on the market. So a lot of times when, I think it was one seller that had maybe 5 or 6 of these of the first print in the 9.8, all ending within like a couple days. So interesting to see all that supply come on the market. Will the prices hold? And so we'll have a look here. We'll go from low to high, I guess. So there were a couple here just in the last few days from kind of like maybe less popular sellers, I would say. 865 one sold for, and 899. So yeah, you can get this one under 900 now if you're really patient, which is kind of cool. I think it was really hard to get it under 900 pretty much in the last 3-4 months here. This book's been so hot. First Miles Morales, new Spiderman. A couple more that sold here. 2 had sold for 921. Another one sold for 960. And then another one sold for 981.22. And I'm pretty sure all those were in auctions. So 921, 960, 982. So certainly this book's capable of being an over 900 book, but if you're really patient here, I think you can get it closer to 800. And there's a lot of hype right now for the next Into the Spider-Verse movie that's coming out, so it's going to be really tough to get this one at a good price until maybe like 6 to 12 months after that movie, which I know is like a long time, but I think in that 6 to 12 month period after Into the Spider-Verse 2 movie, which would be in like 2 years probably, I could see this book being like 700, 750, right around in that area. We'll see though. It's a pretty rare one for a modern, so maybe it'll prove me wrong and just sail right over 1,000. That could happen as well. A cool one to see here, I think. Kind of a range of prices on it too. Thor number 5, the third print in the CGC 9.8. Yeah, one I kind of made a video thinking that the pre-order was a pretty great buy for this cool comic, and getting the Black Winter on the cover in his first full appearance. So 2 had kind of sold here in an auction, just one in the last couple of days, went for $100 even in the CGC 9.8 So that's, you'd think, not looking too bad. But if you have a look here in the last couple weeks, there was one I saw sell for $68.99. So, my pre-order was $49.99. And, I think some people got into the pre-order when it was about $69.99 maybe. So, kind of holding the prices for the Black Winter is definitely just cooling off completely. He died in issue number 6. So certainly I think he'll come back. He's really powerful. He kind of schooled Galactus. So, I'm sure he'll come back at some point. And maybe these issues will heat up. And I think for how cold this one is now, I think, hanging in there in an auction for about $100 in the 9.8 is kind of a decent price. So, just interesting to kind of keep an eye on that one. Next one here is a big key, a Sandman number 1 in the CGC 9.8. Yeah, first appearance of Morpheus, really popular, like Neil Gaiman story. This one, some people are just right into this one. Saw one sell for $699.95. In my experience with this one in the last year or two, like this one would go around $500 maybe. Maybe in a new case if you wanted it right now, like $550. So in this market, maybe $699.95, $700, I think is, probably about fair, maybe a little bit paying up. Maybe you can get this one for $650, but, this book hasn't like doubled like some 9.8s or anything like that, but has its cult of following. And like, I think are there rumors about maybe it being a show? I don't know. There might be something going on with that, but, I'm not too sure, but I think $6.99 in this environment is not too bad for Sandman number 1. Like if you really like this one, this is the one to get. Next one, interesting, maybe cooling off this one. Amazing Spider-Man number 4. In the first print, when Cindy Moon becomes Silk in this one, kind of a pretty popular modern key for sure. So Silk's getting her own show, I think it was, or something like that happened a couple months ago. This issue really took off. Seeing one sell here for $269.99. I think these were getting up to like 300, maybe even over 300. This one just being the first print. But for a while there, I was sort of used to this one going for like 175. In the last year or two, let's call it. And it was like a pretty cool modern kind of first Silk, modern first appearance to get, but it wasn't that expensive. Then that announcement came out. $269, maybe starting to come back toward 200. I'd probably still maybe be a bit patient on this one and wait for closer to 200 for sure, probably in the first print. And there's that variant out there that a lot of collectors seem to be going after, which is quite expensive. Next one here, an Amazing Spider-Man number 315, but in the newsstand, this one I saw sell. Actually saw one sell in the direct, so kind of a good just little case study here on how much the direct goes and how much for the newsstand goes during this sort of late 80s where the newsstands were really rare. So the newsstands go for a lot more during the late 80s and the early 90s than sort of the early 80s. So Amazing Spider-Man 315 in the newsstand going for $399.95. All right, $399.99, so $400, I guess we'll call it. Maybe a bit of an overpay, but then the newsstands are so hot right now. There's kind of, some chatter that there's like a newsstand bubble right now, and maybe there's another issue or two we'll talk about coming up here. But a direct version in Amazing Spider-Man 315 went for $152.50. So $152.50, that's what? Oh, more than double for the newsstand at $400. Is the newsstand worth $400 in this one? Maybe if the newsstands cool off, I could see that one going for sort of the $275 to $300 area in the newsstand. $152.50 for the direct, not bad. I think, this one I thought was more doable, like for maybe even $125. So Amazing Spider-Man 315, though, one to consider if you're a Venom fan. I got one in the direct in the 9.8. Yeah, so, and I think mine was near $100 a couple years ago. Next one, interesting one actually, Eternals number 1 here in the CGC 9.8. Classic, Jack Kirby book here that a movie's going to come out too. One sold for $1,139 in the CGC 9.8. I think this is a bit of an overpay. This one's interesting though. If you can get this one at kind of lower end of fair market value in the 9.8 right now, which for me would probably be like $850 to $900 rather than $1,139, I think is a bit of an overpay. But if Eternals comes out, the movie does really well. If you can get it at the low end now, I think this might be a good book to have, and it'd be a little bit speculating on if that Eternals movie really does well, but and yeah, it's kind of weird with all the movies now. Like, who knows what's going to happen with the whole COVID-19 situation. But Eternals #1, hopefully still under 1,000, I think, in some lulls here, if you wanted it in the CGC 9.8. 1,139, a bit of an overpay it sold for. A couple Venom #3s in the first print saw a sell in the CGC 9.8. Interesting, one for $297 sold and one for $315 in the 9.8 white pages. So yeah, this one was, you know, right around 400 and over during kind of peak Knull hype. So cooling off to 300. I would almost maybe expect this one over time to cool off even a little bit more. It's a modern, it's not that rare in the 9.8, so, you know, 250, 225 kind of makes sense. I always said, like, 225 was always where the first Bane was in the CGC 9.8, and that book's kind of heated up a bit, actually, but I always said, like, Venom 3 first print could probably just come back to where the first Bane is, like, over time, which was about 225. I think now that's, like, about 300, because there's some Bane rumors, I believe, but getting a little more affordable, and yeah, maybe if you really want this one, hopefully around 250, Venom #3, the first print. Yeah, next one here is a Batman Harley Quinn I saw sell, and yeah, I got one of these in the 9.8, really nice one too, with the plain black cover. Like, sometimes there's scuffs on the case and stuff like that, but pretty lucky on mine. Just a great looking 9.8 for this book. Saw one sell for $399.99, so $400 we'll call it. Yeah, and you know what, like mine, I got a really sort of good deal, I thought, on mine. It was probably over a year ago now, I think, and it was like $290. Yeah, I remember just under $300, which was pretty much the low end of fair value at that time, certainly for one in a new case, and that's kind of why I bought it. It was in Canada as well. To see this one for $400 now. You know, I think probably you can still maybe do $350. I don't think this one's heated up that much. That last Harley Quinn movie really kind of flopped. I think people are, you know, sort of the mainstream is kind of over Harley Quinn, although, you know, still a great comic book character, I think, and actually kind of my style to kind of get in here while, you know, the character is not popular. And this one, you know, I got mine at $290, even at, you know, $350 to $400. When those Harley Suicide Squad movies, Harley Quinn got really popular at first. A lot of these sold for like over $500 in the CGC 9.8. It really spiked up there. So this is one that, yeah, you could just get for a great price, and I sort of came around on this cover. I didn't really like it. I thought it was just kind of plain Jane. But over time, like just the creepy Joker cover, I love it now pretty much. So I wanted to get one in the 9.8. Yeah, very collectible. The origin and first appearance of Harley Quinn in DCU, that one, selling for $399.99. Next one, a cool one, Justice League #31. It's the first full appearance of Jessica Cruz. This is one I've kind of targeted through, you know, over time. I know a lot of people like that cameo appearance of her, and that one's easier to get in the CGC 9.8. I think that's Green Lantern #20 or something like that. But this one is harder to find, not very many of them out there. First full appearance of Jessica Cruz, who's like the Lady Green Lantern, basically. $223.61 saw one of these sell for in the CGC 9.8. Yeah, $223.61. Tough to find. I think I almost could have made a deal with the one in Canada. It was about a year ago, and I think it was around $200. So to maybe go one for $223.61 in an auction, maybe I should have grabbed it. But a cool underfollowed one if you're a Green Lantern fan, yeah. Hopefully closer to $200, I think, is still kind of doable in this one, even though it's hard to find. Yeah, Justice League #31. X-Men 53 had sold in the CGC 9.8. This is a cool one. 90s X-Men book. It's the first full appearance of Onslaught. There was kind of a big saga in the 90s, and Onslaught was the main villain. So this one in a CGC 9.8 went for $157.49. I got this one in a CBCS 9.8. And I think it was like $120 for mine in the CBCS, so that kind of makes sense. I think, yeah, right around $140, $150, I'm pretty sure is right about the fair market value for this one in the CGC 9.8 from what I remember. So probably hasn't heated up much. Just, you know, if you grew up during that time in the 90s, this is kind of a cool one to maybe consider. X-Men 53, 157.49 it's sold for. Next one's a cool one, actually. I, really kind of considering this one just after kind of doing the research this morning. Uncanny X-Men 257. This is the first time you see Jubilee in her costume. So, yeah, kind of like, the first Jubilee as we know her, which is pretty cool, I think. Great Jim Lee cover. Yep. Most people think of the issue right before this one, the first new Psylocke, which is kind of a cool underfollowed X-Men key as well, as kind of the main key. But this one I think is worth, checking out. One sold for $92.95 in the CGC 9.8. You might even be able to get this one for cheaper as well. But if you're a Jim Lee fan and like maybe on a budget, like first Jubilee in costume for $92.95 and a classic Jim Lee cover, like that to me is pretty great value. So next one is I saw an Amazing Spider-Man 361 sell. Yeah, first full appearance Carnage, classic 90s book in the 9.8 direct version. So not the newsstand, the direct version. Sell for $624.99. So this one, yeah, kind of continuing to sort of heat up, getting into the Venom 2 movie, I think. $624.99 is pretty expensive, I think, for a direct version of this. I grabbed my newsstand version about a year ago, maybe even a little bit longer now, for $410 it was. So this one's come a long way, and I think the direct version is still doable under $600, I think, in the direct version. If you want the newsstand, it's probably closer to $700 right now. This, yeah, a book I love, but one to maybe be patient on and wait till after Venom 2. Yeah, a lot of these symbiotes, they're just really in the last 6 months, I've just really heated up considerably in price. Hard time kind of recommending them, even though I like them so much. But might want to be patient and wait till after Venom 2 movie, 6 to 12 months. And hopefully this one's like around 500 or maybe even under 500 again. Next one here, a really big investment grade book I saw sell. It's a Marvel Spotlight number 28. Great cover on this one. The first solo Moon Knight story, basically. It's not his first appearance. That's like the Werewolf by Night book. But this one's so collectible. I didn't look up the 9.8 ratio today, but I think it's pretty rare too. Getting into the 70s here. Great looking cover. I think this is my favorite Moon Knight cover of all of them. One sold for $1,000. Yeah, $999.99. $1,000 for Marvel Spotlight 28. As if you're the biggest Moon Knight fan, I could absolutely, I think that's kind of worth it. Maybe if you're really patient on this one, it's a couple hundred, maybe $100 less than that. But I think if you got a long-term time horizon, you're the biggest Moon Knight fan, $1,000 for a perfect Marvel Spotlight 20. It was looking pretty good too. Yeah, great cover on that one for $1,000 even, we'll call it. Next one I saw sell, Uncanny XMen 221. Yeah, you always see usually a couple of these sell. Cool book to kind of keep an eye on because, there's the rumors, and I think there was sort of a confirmation that Mr. Sinister is going to be the villain in the next MCU X-Men movies, whenever those happen. So a couple of these selling in the direct, CGC 9.8, $300 and $325. So yeah, this is one where it cooled down there under $200 in the CGC 9.8 for a bit there. Quite a few of them had sold for under $200. Those rumors came out, heated right back up to right around this price. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see with this one. If Mr. Sinister is not the villain in the MCU, this might cool down to $200 again. It's not that rare in the 9.8. The 9.8 ratio is not that low. So, but if Mr. Sinister does come out in the movies and he looks really cool, this will probably be a really great book to have for many years. So I could totally maybe see, grabbing it. Hopefully under 300 here though, $275 maybe would be a really good price target. There's quite a lot of these out there, but yeah, first appearance of Mr. Sinister, big X-Men key, 221 for $300 and $325, two selling for. Next one here, an Immortal Hulk number 1. Yeah, the first print Alex Ross cover. This is one that I got in the 9.8, and I've sort of had the feeling that this could just be a modern classic cover. It's just so collectible. Seeing one sell for $214.99. Yeah, and you don't actually see too many of these. I think a lot of people just really like this one and hold it pretty close. So you don't really see too many CGC 9.8s pop up looking really good in this one. $214 though is 215 we'll call it, is pretty expensive. I grabbed mine for basically about $100 over a year ago now, and always had that feeling that, yeah, maybe people could pay like $200 to $225 for this over time, just based on like, I want that super cool Immortal Hulk cover, basically. Yeah, just Alex Ross nailed it on this one. $214.99. I think still probably $150 to $175 is doable on this one, but one I'd recommend. Yeah, like a modern classic, this one. Next one's Uncanny XMen 266. Yeah, first full appearance of Gambit. Really cool Andy Kubert cover. Selling for $549.99. Yeah, this is one that's heated up pretty considerably as well, with just the 9.8 market in general, it being a really great cover and a key, and people thinking that the X-Men's coming to the MCU and all that. $549.99. I'm not sure if it's worth that much. I'd try to get under $500 in this one. Be really picky on centering too. This is like an early 90s book, so lots of 9.8s. You know, in the early 90s was like the peak of comic book printing and book printing pretty much in general. So yeah, I think there's a lot of these out there in the 9.8, so I'd aim for under 500, even with all these rumors and things like that for this one in the 9.8. Still a cool one though. Uncanny XMen 266, going for $549.99. Watchmen #1, seen one of these sell. Yeah, classic story, and yeah, the Watchmen, that show got a bunch of like awards and everything. So Watchmen #1 though in the 9.8, selling for $559.99. That's not too bad, I think, in this environment. You know, I do remember some of these going really close to 400 like in the last year or two, but the market's heated up, so you'd expect a pretty big key DC book like this to heat up as well. So yeah, I think $559.99 is not too bad. Hopefully closer to 500 though in the 9.8 for Watchmen #1 9.8. But that's the book to, if you're a Watchmen fan, that's the book to get. Hopefully closer to 500 in the 9.8 though. Interesting to see one of these sell for a pretty decent price, because lots of times it's like people trying to get ridiculous prices for it. Star Wars Clone Wars #1. This just the normal version. They're both, there's that variant version that's really limited, but they're both pretty low printed. But Star Wars Clone Wars #1, the first appearance of Ahsoka Tano, saw one sell for $1,599. And yeah, like Go Collect's got this one right now at $1,550 for the fair market value. So this one going for right around that fair value. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with this book. This one is low printed, like you love it from that perspective. I certainly have said like, wow, before all these rumors came out, this was like the best Star Wars like speculation book to get. I remember when it was basically like about $300 in the CGC 9.8. Now, Ahsoka Tano's supposed to be in Mandalorian. This book absolutely exploded. It's low printed. Still going for $1,599. I'd still kind of be a little bit patient on this one. You know, this is one to kind of want because it is low printed. Great collector item. But at that price, I would probably wait for sort of the 1,250 level. And who knows what's going to happen. Yeah, that's another thing. Like maybe it's going to, like Sabine Wren's going to be more in the Mandalorian 2 season 2 now, and not Ahsoka Tano. So if there's a bit of a letdown from that, this one could be closer to 1,000 pretty quick. Yeah, one to keep an eye on though. One selling for $1,599. Batman 404 had sold in a CGC 9.8. Yeah, a great looking one. I got two of these in the CGC 9.8 and one in the CBCS 9.8. I got a nice raw too. That's like pretty flawless as well. Yeah, one of my favorite Batman books. One selling for $214.95 in the CGC 9.8. That's sort of the price they've been going for ever since the Batman movies coming out and the trailer hit, and people getting pretty excited for their Batman now. And yeah, I grabbed mine. You know, this was one of my sort of undervalued Batman 9.8s to always love. And when I grabbed mine, I think one was like 105 or something like that. And one was maybe like 130 or 140 or something. Yeah, I think I paid up a little bit for one. So this one over 200 now. The Batman's coming out. I still think right around 200. I think even right now, you know, the Batman's coming out and everything. But this is just, I think, a bit undervalued, maybe even still. So cool. So right around 200 still makes sense in the CGC 9.8, in my opinion. Next one, it's just really interesting to see this one just keep climbing up step by step. Wolverine Limited Series #1 in the CGC 9.8. Seeing one sell. It was in a new case with like the nice Wolverine decal and everything, so kind of a top of the line one. Direct edition though, for $575. So interesting. Like, you know, a year ago it was about, I paid $276 for mine. I remember that price for some reason. In the CGC 9.8, I got a really nice one, 9.8 direct edition for $276. Now it's $575. This one's not too rare in the 9.8. You know, Frank Miller's classic. This is such a classic cover, so I can see why people want it, but I'd be more, you know, inclined to kind of wait till for $500 or maybe even under $500 for this one. There's a lot of these in the 9.8. It's not that rare for kind of an early 80s book. I know I was kind of surprised by that, by how many of them there are. So, you know, maybe after this Frank Miller signing thing, I know that's kind of been a while, but there's a lot of Frank Miller books on the market right now, and maybe this one will continue to cool down a little bit, possibly. But I'd kind of recommend to wait for 500 or under for Wolverine Limited Series #1 in the CGC 9.8. Okay, next one's a modern that I really like this cover, actually. It's Venom #27. Just talk about cover A. This is the first full appearance of Codex. But just the cover A, kind of Stegman, kind of has like some classic Venom vibes, I think. It's not rare or anything, but saw one sell in the CGC 9.8 for $69.99. And my feeling is you could probably maybe even do even better than that, maybe closer to 50 in an auction on this one. A lot of them getting graded, so there'll be a lot of auctions coming up. You can be patient on this one if you want it, but a cool modern, yeah, first full appearance of Codex. I got to get into the Venom series still. I've been putting it off for too long. I got to start reading this one, but I like this cover. Yeah, I think this is just a cool cover, and you get a first full appearance of Codex in there, so yeah, kind of sort of $50 to $70 I think is the range, and if you want this one, I think this one's a decent one. Okay, next one here is made a couple videos on this and unboxed one as well. It's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, the retailer incentive edition here we'll talk about in the CGC 9.8. Saw one of these sell. So it's the first Lita and Mona Lisa, and Lita is like the new kid Ninja Turtle. So I think a pretty great sort of new modern first appearance to focus on. One selling in an auction for $400 even. Yeah, $400 even, and you know, I grabbed mine in an auction, and then I made a video a couple days after, and mine was a $213. It was $213 I won it for in the auction. Is it worth $400? I'm not too sure right now. It's not a very rare one. I think there's like 70 or 80 9.8s already graded in this retailer incentive version. So I'd actually be pretty patient here and wait for $300. You know, a lot of modern books tend to spike up and then, you know, sort of lull to 300 and sometimes even, you know, under 300. Like Kane and the Last Padawan #1 right now is reminding me of that, where kind of, you know, got up there. A lot of people were speculating, got up to $400, and now some are selling for like $220. Yeah, to like even $200. I saw one I almost bought one actually yesterday, one in Canada for about $200 right now, American. Kane and the Last Padawan #1, CGC 9.8. So this book, you know, it's heated up a lot, but I don't think, you know, Lita's going to get into pop culture anytime soon, like be mainstream or anything like that. So one selling for $400, I would wait for $300 or even under, possibly. Okay, last one here, interesting one. I saw Spawn #1 in the newsstand, but signed by McFarlane in the CGC 9.8 sell. So kind of all the rage a couple weeks ago was there was a Spawn #1 in the newsstand in an auction, and people were talking about a Spawn movie, and one in the newsstand 9.8 sold for like $1,000, I think it was $1,090 or something like that, I think it was. A non-signed one. So this one, a couple weeks later, you know, the news has kind of, the hype has maybe died down a bit. A signed newsstand CGC 9.8 sold for $1,050 on eBay just in the last couple of days here. So about the same price, but you get McFarlane's signature. So yeah, really important just to illustrate how, you know, I never recommend on the channel to kind of rush out there in a promotion-filled environment to buy a CGC 9.8. Like a lot of times you'll end up paying up, and then you realize it sometimes only weeks later. You almost feel like, yeah, it can happen really quick. But a signed Spawn #1 newsstand selling for $1,050, right? Like, yeah, right. That sort of. I know McFarlane. I think he did some kind of documentaries type thing and was talking about Spawn and Jamie Foxx being in the movie and this and that, and that's happened before in the last 3 or 4 years as well. And that newsstand non-signed went for over $1,000. So I think the non-signed one you can aim for sort of $800, maybe even $750. I think is still doable. Yeah, maybe $700 to $800 can kind of, and then the signed one, actually, I think about $1,000 is probably a pretty decent price in this environment for a Spawn #1 newsstand signed by McFarlane. Okay, full list there of a bunch of 9.8 key issues and their prices. Yeah, I really like to do these videos just to get right on top of some of the key issues, and yeah, like I say, the more information you have on the prices, you're going to know the fair market value, way less of a chance you'll ever overpay, because there's always people on eBay out there, like, you know, trying to get 50, 60, 70% more. Like, you know, you got to be patient. You got to, you know, wait for an auction, or, you know, wait for a new listing to pop up. That's the best offer that you can negotiate at the fair value, because there's always sharks out there. Like a market, there's always going to be people trying to get, you know, top dollar for everything. So yeah, the 9.8 game, it's not all, you know, oh, I want this, and then I go out and get it right away. Like, it's not that. It's, you know, if you want something, then, you know, you got to want it, and then you got to start doing searches for it. You got to search for it for a month or two. You got to do a little research to know the value, which kind of what these videos are all about. Then you got to be patient. You got to wait for the right seller. So yeah, very often, or hardly ever, do I want a 9.8 and then look on eBay and there's one for a fair market value and I can just buy right away. Like, that rarely happens. So got to be patient and know a little more pricing information, way less of a chance you'll ever overpay. Just be a little more strategic about it. That's what these videos are all about. Okay, I will have a list in the description below of all the issues we talked about and the prices if you want to check that out. Thanks so much for watching, though. Yeah, I really like getting on top of the prices with these CGC 9.8 pricing videos. If you haven't already, I would invite you to join the team and subscribe to Team CGC 9.8. Hit the bell for all the latest video notifications. Add me on Instagram and Twitter as well. Thanks again for watching, though. Really appreciate all the support, and message me on Instagram if you did have any questions. But thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one.